Welcome back to the Dopesick Show you won't get sick of. I'm Spencer, and this is Sasha. I spent most of my 20s in federal prison, but I've been off heroin since April 9, 2010. Got a lot of stories about the dumb stuff I did to get put in prison. I've also got quite a few stories about the crazy stuff that happened when I was actually in prison. And God forbid you end up in prison, you want to make some of the same mistakes I made. So, Hustle Man, everybody's been in prison, has heard somebody with that nickname. At the low security at Petersburg, Hustle Man was a fat white guy who was probably about close to middle age with a big old mole on his face. Okay? Now, everything I'm talking about here is from what I heard and from what I saw and from what I've gathered, and I would say it was pretty much accurate. Now, at the medium security, it's a whole different type of story. At the medium security, the higher security, the higher level of violence. And I would say at the medium security at Petersburg, actual human trafficking in the prison, inmates selling other inmates, was at a higher rate than any other prison probably in the BOP. There's an odd dynamic of chomos and of locals. D.C., Maryland, Virginia, North, South Carolina, Kentucky, Tennessee are local. People get sent to Petersburg as far as Texas and California. So at the medium, a lot of it got a little violent. It got a little bit by force. But a lot of time it was chummas, but not all the time. So I mean, got to be real about that. The more I had to kind of just give myself an honest look back at it, I was making excuses for why it happened to certain people. And, that isn't really right. Besides the chomos, of course, we can all agree. You can have different opinion on religion, on politics, but if you mess with the kids, we don't really like you. I'm talking about people who weren't messing with kids, and stuff like that. But anyhow, so Hustle Man, to me, was a little bit unbearable. He would almost, with me personally, if I feel like somebody's pushing a sale on me, that's the quickest thing to turn me away from a sale. And he'd push it on. And he'd also come up to you if you had some shoes on or something else and try to, how much you want for them? I'll give you the blah, blah. And try to buy them off you. And I'm like, no, I wouldn't have bought it if I didn't want it. So no. And he'd approach you with that kind of stuff all the time. And it got to be quite annoying after a while. And there's something you will hear inmates say, and I've heard other people say this too, but they're like, that exclusive stuff. This exclusive. Like Lavelle Crawford says, that exclusive stuff, player. Okay? That's something you'll hear Hustle Man say. That's not just in Petersburg. That isn't just this Hustle Man. That's universal. That's any prison in the country. Whatever Hustle Man is going to say, that exclusive stuff. And I mean, they might even say it in a funny voice. Okay? Now, there are certain things that indeed are exclusive. A lot of the time, it means it's a little more rare than what people typically have. There are 4 pairs of shoes. Jordans, Adidas, stuff like that. Under Armour, that rotate every 3 months at Commissary. Different prisons get different shoes. Some of these people have been in prison for 20 years. Some of these people have been in prison for 40 years. I've known somebody who was in prison for 46 years. And some of these people, especially the old timers that knew they were going to be in prison that long, bought a pair of shoes 20 years ago, enclosed it in a plastic bag, and they've kept it in that plastic bag. You know how old people keep the plastic on furniture? That's about how these people deal with these shoes, and they never wore them. It's kind of like collectible toys. Of course, no. How many kids are going to buy a toy and not take it out of the packaging? That'd be like torture for a kid. That'd be like, what's the point? Okay? Some of these people had long-term plans. Some of them, it was like collector's item. And they had some shoes. People had some shoes. I'll tell you one pair of shoes that wasn't even cool. Okay? These people been in prison for a minute, so they thought this was the shiznit. Nike Shocks. They were some ugly Shocks, okay? They've been around for a minute. They've been around since I was in high school, and I mean, it's been a good many years, but a pair of Shocks showed up. That was a thing. Of course, Hustle Man bought the shocks. He ended up selling them probably for about $500. Wasn't even good looking. But people have certain stuff to stand out. You wouldn't have guessed that I had money to spend in prison. I didn't, the only shoes that I bought, now I will say this, I bought these flat-soled Nikes that were flat-soled. Basically, they didn't have, basically, if I was wanting to kick somebody and do damage to somebody, these shoes would be perfect. If I was wanting to fight somebody, these shoes would be perfect. And I bought those shoes, and they cost more. I bought them from my buddy Sweeney. Not Hillbilly Sweeney who has the inbred stories, but this was actually Counterfeiter Sweeney. You know him from the stories. He did all the counterfeit 50s, which caused somebody to get their eye put out here in Roanoke. He'd been in 22 county jails across the East Coast. Said the Western Virginia Regional Jail in Salem, Virginia, where I spent 13 months, had the worst food of any of those jails. Important fact to note. But that is probably the only thing I bought from him. But anyway, so Hustle Man sold anything he get his hands on. Sometimes he middleman a little bit of dope, a little bit of weed, a little bit of alcohol. But for the most part, it seemed like mostly, shoes. It seemed like coolers, special coolers. I had a gallon cooler. I had to pay like $80 or $100 for that cooler. Most of the coolers all the coolers you could buy off Commissary were see-through. If you didn't have a see-through cooler, walking to and from rec, guard might stop you, make you open it up, check it, because there were places people could hide stuff in there. It happened, but I mostly kept that cooler inside. It was just nice in the summer because we had no air conditioning, and to have a gallon cooler with ice in it sealed, it would last for quite a long time. The see-through coolers didn't have wouldn't hold anything to it. But anyhow, I end up having a conversation. See, Hustle Man was in the drug unit. Okay, and Sellies was somebody who I ended up becoming pretty decent friends with, ended up working out with. See, most of the time I worked out in there, I worked out with my friend Boone. And Boone was, call him Big Midget. He's 5'4", he was 240 pounds, incredible power lifts, okay? He's the one who butt fell out, who had the reverse pink sock. A crazy story of that. Y'all probably heard me say something about that before, but anyhow. Then I worked out with JB, Chicken Man, and Field. They had incredible bench presses. But my last little bit, I worked out at a different time, and it was at lunchtime. And I would get a workout with different people, see different people in passing, and I basically led the group. It was the first time I led the group. I'd been there enough time. It was the right time for me to do that, just do my own thing, meet my own goals instead of having somebody else lead me. That way I could do what I wanted to do my last little bit before getting out. And I met a number of different people. Now, the person who I'm talking about, who was his cellmate, we had a number of different conversations about different things, and I talked about his cell. I'm like, he just tries to sell anything, doesn't he? He said, you don't even know. What do you mean I don't even know? Because he said it like, you don't even know. Like when people say something a certain way, and you're like, what do you mean by nothing? And I'm like, no, not nothing. You can't do that. You cannot do that. What's he selling? Because first thing I'm thinking, of course, I'm small bone. Look at my bone structure. I got up big on my power lifts for my weight, but I don't have a big bone structure to pack on a whole bunch of muscle. So, Pinto said basically, in nice politically correct words, he said I have special people strength. Okay, because it doesn't make sense how much I could lift. And so did Steve, the guy who wrote my meal plans. He said that my form wasn't that good, but it didn't make sense how I was lifting when I lifted. But I wanted to pack on more muscle, so I figured he might be selling steroids. And, so I'm pushing him for this. Because there's some people in there that were just lifting such a tremendous amount, I couldn't believe it. They weren't selling steroids, I'll tell you that. Okay, the same amount of space that it would take up to smuggle in a little bottle of steroids plus the big needle that they have to inject it with themselves, the same amount of space that would take up, which that could sell for a month's supply at that, would most sell for a few $100s. The same amount of space that would take up would equal probably about $5,000 worth of heroin. So they're not going to be sneaking in something that would sell for a couple $100s when they could sneak something in that would make thousands of dollars. It doesn't make sense. Too much risk, not enough reward. But somehow I got my head selling steroids. So I kept on pushing him. I kept on asking him. And I was like, you got to tell me, man. I'm going to keep on bugging you till you do. Go ahead, tell me. Tell me. He's selling steroids, isn't he? No, he ain't selling steroids. I'm like, what's he selling? He's selling butt. What do you mean he's selling butt? He said, you heard me. I'm like, what in the hell are you talking about? And he proceeded to tell me. So basically, Hustle Man would deal with anybody. Anybody could approach Hustle Man. He would deal with anybody. Chomo, not chomo, he was about money. Black, white, brown, yellow, whatever, he did not discriminate, and he didn't care if you messed with the little children. Okay, so bad on him for that, but anyhow, he would deal with anybody. People didn't think he was messing with punks because they saw he deal with anybody. It wasn't something that came into play. It wasn't a question. So, that being said, it wouldn't be uncommon if you saw a punk. Somebody who was out and out in the open, notorious, would approach anybody, type deal. Talking to Hustle Man, asking him, could he get this? Could he get that? At the medium security at Petersburg, they have Unicor, which is a private prison industry which splits the profits with the BOP. It's basically modern day slavery, but since they pay higher than any prison job, nobody complains. But I mean, paying inmates a starting wage of $1 an hour and $2 an hour after you've worked there for about 18 months, that's slave wages, especially for a private corporation based in America to only pay your employees $2 an hour. Okay? That's slave wages. At the low security, they made calendars. At the medium security, they sorted coat hangers. So when you see a big box and you go buy clothes and they throw the coat hanger in the box, just whoop, it goes in the box, they send it to Petersburg Medium. All across the country, they send those boxes to Petersburg Medium. If you ever wonder where those boxes go, that's where they go. Petersburg Medium, where the freaks come out at night. What? Yeah, it's a weird place. So, they found everything from a pocket knife, an actual pocket knife, in these boxes, and to thongs, okay? Thongs. Like Cisco Thong Song is an awful song. Terrible song, sounded depressing and everything else. Okay, but anyway, the punks will buy those thongs for $50, $100. That's a little tiny piece of string. They buy it $50, $100. People, I had friends that were in Unicorn. They're like, yeah, I hit big today. I found 10 thongs in the thing. I made myself about $500. I'm like, what? So 10 thongs for $500? Yep. So they would go to him because people came from the medium to the low and see if they get stuff like that. So, to see somebody talking to him wouldn't be too out of the question, but ultimately what I found out, and I didn't find out too awful many names, but I did find out what the process was. Basically, just like at the medium, there were people that got pimped out. There were, I guess, free agents, whatever you call them. A hoe without a pimp. At the low security, that were looking to make money, and maybe they were just devious. Maybe they were deviants that just wanted somebody to do something with and then make money for it, so then it would be like just whatever. Yeah. So they would approach him, and it wouldn't look like anything because he's Hustle Man. Shoot, everybody comes and talks to Hustle Man. Shoot, everybody wants something from Hustle. He knows he can get it. Okay, he ain't nothing like Caretaker from The Longest Yard. See, Caretaker, that was a likable character. This guy was a little bit more greasy. He's like a used car salesman, okay? He's like a used car salesman that's going to do you dirty. It wasn't nothing like Chris Rock playing Caretaker on Longest Yard, okay? I'm going to tell you that right now. But anyhow, they'd approach him, and they basically would make these agreements. And from what his cellie told me, Hustle Man was bragging about it. Was bragging so much about it. And ultimately what he would do was he would set up a time and he would set up a place. Now, he would set up a time, he would set up a place, and he would collect a fee in which he would split 50%. He'd get half the money for setting this up. He'd get half the money for setting it up, but he'd get half the money for his discretion. So these undercover people, according to his cellie, were giving him half the money for what they were doing. for what the punk was doing with them. He was just a broker. Typically, I'd reckon a broker get 20%. He's getting 50%. So shoot, he's coming off good on that deal. Now, education, anywhere in the prison system, that's somewhere you don't go. You don't go to the bathroom in education. I learned that at the medium security. But you have to print out mailing labels. You can't just send a mail. You can't send mail, just write your name on it. You got to print out a mailing label. So then they know it came from you. There's actually my buddy Mikey. You know, I thought he was a chomo at first. He was just albino, okay? A lot of the chomos look like, you know, you wouldn't let your kids around him. Mikey looked like you wouldn't let your kids around him, but Mikey was a good guy. He just ran a crack house. He got dared to send an envelope with coffee creamer to President Bush when he was in office and make a threat. Well, he got an extra 5 or 10 years for that, claiming it was anthrax or something. Had his mailing label on it. That's how they got him. So you have to go to education to print these mailing labels out. At the medium security, education's all on floor. At the low security, it's 2 floors. Recreation is attached to education at the low security, and it's also attached to the leather shop, and it's also attached to the art room where people do paintings and stuff. So you can wander between any of those 3 places. The door's open all the time. There's a second floor to education. I did a coastal engineering class to get my points dropped so I could go to the camp. And I was going to the camp, but then I wasn't telling my buddy Pinto. So I had to go to the medium for 2 years with camp points. It's a whole messed up thing behind it. But anyhow, from what I understand, okay, in the nighttime when people do these classes, they're classes that are supposed to educate the prisoners. This coastal engineering class, we did nothing. We just sat in the class. There were about 8 or 10 classes. You sat in them, and it dropped your points. It would drop you down 1 or 2 points. See, if you have like 12 points, whatever, you know, at 11 points and under, you have camp points. I started with 11 points. But I figure I'm going to take this class, I'm going to take the HIV awareness class, and if I get down to like 7 or 8 points, they got to put me at the camp. So I got down to like 7 points, and they put me in for the camp. I was going to go to the camp, but I had to sit in this coastal engineering class. But anyhow, during the time that I was in this coastal engineering class, I sat in this class. My buddy Fox, he was there. One day I'll get him on here, assuming he's doing good. Hadn't talked to him in a minute. He's doing a little rough. You know, we all have good and bad times, but he can talk about this because he was in every one of these classes with me. I went to go to the bathroom and the second floor of education, which there's 0 staff in. At nighttime, it's a low security. There's not 1 staff member inside the education building. The only staff member is down in the gym, which is out the door, down the stairs, past the weight pavilion, down some more stairs, past the handball courts, around in the gym, and another 300 feet back to the CO's office. That's how much space. All this space. I went to go to the bathroom. Somebody standing outside, and they basically let me know, you know, there's something going on, you know, this and that. You're going to want to go downstairs, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, they basically let me know what was up. And I was like, oh, okay. I guess I'll go downstairs. Went downstairs to take a leak. Know what's going on there. Same thing happened at the medium, but I didn't figure it was a universal thing. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't figure it was a universal thing. And that wasn't always something that happened there. There were some days where you could go. Usually when people, like something like that, if there's somebody standing outside of a bathroom in prison, you know, some nasty stuff's going on. So what I'm guessing he brokered times and places and probably even watch outs. But yeah, Hustle Man was brokering butt. Yeah, he brokering butt. Yeah, it's some wild stuff. Don't go to prison. You know, for a straight person like me, all I did, I had 6 dirty magazines, and I paid my buddy Jamie Jones. He'll be out in prison here for long. He'll talk about this too. We had a dormitory setting, but he made this thing in the top of his bunk. It was 2 pieces of fabric like this. It looked like it was just a drape to keep the sun out of his eye, but we put all the magazines in between there. So I just walk by, whoop, pull a magazine out, different magazine for, you know, each different desk. Kid in my 20s, you know what I mean? There aren't any other options for me. I'm a straight dude. That's just what it is. But blew my mind. And some of the people you'd find out week by week. But Hustle Man, he didn't really talk too much about the people that was paying him. He wanted to keep making that money. And he was all about his money, and he kept on making money in there. Yeah, I'm sure he walked out with a decent little bit. A lot of the times, the people that do stuff like that are people that don't have family. They don't have something to come out to. They don't have, like, a place to go home to. So they end up trying to make $10, $20, $30,000 when they're in prison. So when they get out, they don't have to live at the homeless shelter. They don't have to live in a halfway. They can go have an apartment, rent a house, have something to do. And a lot of people make stupid plans, like going to Texas to buy a kilo and trying to bring it up northeast, sell it for double, and then do it again. I know somebody who did that. I've got a story about that too, now to think about it. But anyway, hustle man with broke her butt. Yeah. Anyway, if you liked the video, press the like button. If not, it's 20 minutes and 41 seconds of your life, which you'll never get back. Doing this video tonight. Me and Casey, we're going to have a good day tomorrow. So anyway, I hope y'all liked it.